Oh, hello. I didn't see you guys there. Welcome back to the final episode of the most in-depth guide to poly repairs on the entire internet. In today's video, we're going to finish up the two Flanagans. So we're going to get our final coats of resin on them, sand and polish, and then we're going to have a quick look at micro balloons and their use case scenario. A quick reminder that we are running a raffle during the release of this series. So this is your last chance, this video, to enter that raffle and go in the draw to walk away with a bunch of prizes from Shapers Collective next door. Full of great New Zealand product, surf related, cool companies. This might be your only chance to get your hands on some of this product if you're not living in New Zealand yourself. This series has been a massive undertaking. I actually started filming this series nearly a year ago now, so it's a very good feeling to get this last one edited and released to you guys. I hope the series has been helpful. I hope it's something that you can bookmark for the future, and you can always come back and watch sections again if you need help with something. And as always, guys, any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below, and I will be sure to get to them and answer them. After this video, there will be one more video which will be your final exam. So I won't be teaching you, you're going to be teaching me about the process, and we'll see how well you've been listening. So during that video, we will draw that raffle. So again, this is your last chance to enter. If you go to the comments, there'll be a pinned comment on any one of the videos in this series, including this one, and that will have the instructions on how you can enter the raffle. Hope you're well, guys. Hope life's treating you well, and we'll see you in the next one. Choo-hoo! All right, it has been a minute, or more like an hour, so we're going to hard sand this purple Flanagan, nose, middle, tail, both sides, see how we get along, see how it looks, and whether or not we need to apply a gloss coat. While we sand this initial resin coat, I just want to give a quick shout out to the channel members: MJ Raleigh, Gareth Brewer, Rick Marion, Sam Mascari, Kelly Doran, Seth Tinsley, Dirk Peters, Rough Shape Surf Science, Logan, Pascal, Mark Toledano, Kesamate, Drone Phobia, and Robert Bush Over. Worth pointing out that on this hard edge, although it came up pretty well wrapping the cloth on that hard edge, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4 air bubbles there, and that's just where that cloth wasn't able to wrap that really hard 90-degree corner, and so we've ended up with some air bubbles. So when we sand that area, it's very likely that those air bubbles are going to open up. It's not the end of the world because we know we have some cloth underneath, so we'll probably actually be able to sand them away completely. But even if we can't, we're probably going to be adding a gloss coat, and that gloss coat will fill those air bubbles that we've opened up with the sander. As predicted, we've opened up these air bubbles, so you can see there's a low spot. I haven't blown the dust out because the dust kind of highlights the air bubbles. But remember, we clothed this area first, and then we clothed this area and wrapped it. So I know that there's fiberglass cloth beneath these air bubbles. So I'm pretty comfortable that I can just keep sanding and we'll sand them flat straight away. Okay, so we have two areas to look at on this board before we do our gloss coat. The first one, of course, is where we got those air bubbles wrapping that sharp rail. Luckily for us, we had the original glass of the board, then we had our glass patch that we did on the bottom side, and then we wrapped our final layer over the rail, and that's what gave us our air bubbles. So we could confidently sand away those air bubbles knowing that there was our first layer of cloth beneath, and then there was actually the original glass beneath that as well. So there was no risk of over sanding and hitting the foam or anything like that. If you're ever faced with a situation like that, try and stop and think about how the board was built, how your repair has gone, and what are you actually looking at? What material is there for you to play with? Do you have enough that you can just keep sanding and getting rid of those blemishes, air bubbles, or do you have to do something else because there's not much underneath? And we had to sand pretty hard to get rid of those air bubbles, so of course we've exposed a bunch of weave from our cloth, so we're going to have to gloss coat just to hide all of that, and then we can do our final sand and polish. Our second spot worth having a look at is this patch here in the middle of the board. Because it's on such a flat area, we actually sanded it perfectly. Because it was on a flat, easy area where the resin wasn't running towards the nose or running towards the tail, we managed to stack our resin up to cover our cloth entirely. We've sanded it with 120, and we could do 240, 320 on the machine now, and then 400 wet, 600 wet, and probably that's it. Quick run over on the buff and we'd be done. If this board came in with only this ding, that is possibly what I would be doing right now. This board would be finished aside from final wet sand and polish. But let's have a closer look at the ding and actually see if, even though we've sanded it really well and the repair's coming out really well so far, no exposed weave, no weird lumps and bumps, are we still better off giving it a gloss coat anyway? I'm going to grab our pencil here and we're going to imagine both processes and what they would lead to. So having a closer look at our ding now, all of this that you can see that we've sanded is 120 grit. We haven't used any other grit so far. And now we're sanded nice and smooth. We've got our ding down. We haven't exposed any weave. Remembering our cloth is just in that area there. We could quite comfortably continue sanding this and then polish it. So our next step of sanding, we're going to have to get rid of these 120 scratches here. And the way we would get rid of those 120 scratches is to move to the next grit, and we would sand this area here with 240. Still on the machine, still on the orbital. Then we're going to use 320 and we're going to sand this area here with 320, and that's going to get rid of our 240 scratches. Then we're going to take it outside and we're going to wet sand with 400, and that's going to get rid of our 320 scratches. Then we're maybe going to go to 600, and that's going to bring us all the way out of frame here even, and then up to here and over the logo here. So then we're going to be ready for our final polish. That means that if I chose now to just continue sanding and finish this ding as is, by the time I'm all done sanding, I'm going to be working an area kind of like that. Remember, our ding only started out about that big, so we're going to be sanding quite a big area. And then by the time I run the buff over it, I'm going to go all the way to this side. I'm probably going to come most of the board we're going to be polishing afterwards, just swinging it around, you know. So we can certainly do that. It is an option, but it just means that we're going to be sanding quite a large area of the board overall, and no one likes excess sanding. What we're going to do though, because we need to gloss coat those other dings anyway, but even if we weren't going to, it's an option. All of these 120 scratches, if we put resin on them now, then there's no 120 scratches anymore. We're going to basically sand all those 120 scratches away just with resin. So now, once our resin's cured, we're left with a blank canvas. That means we can start sanding 320 here. We skip the 420, then we go to 400 here, and then we go to 600 here. So we're actually going to be sanding a smaller area of the board, because by gloss coating all of those 120 scratches away, as opposed to sanding all of those 120 scratches away, we're skipping stages of sanding and keeping our repair areas smaller. So there is no right or wrong in this case. I have to mix resin anyway to gloss coat the tail, to gloss coat the nose, so I may as well gloss coat the middle of the board as well. If the tail and the nose weren't affected. They weren't part of the job. It was just that middle ding. You could choose whether you want to gloss coat that little ding in the middle, or do you just want to sand up to your 600 whatever and polish it. There is no wrong answer. It's just something worth keeping in mind, and depending on the job, some jobs one option might be better than the other. This logo is done right and it's under the glass, but quite often with cheaper pop-out boards, the logos are above the glass, meaning if you run sandpaper over them, you'll start sanding that logo away. So quite often, let's say this ding was down here a little bit, if we've got one option to sand and sand over this logo and damage it, or we've got another option that only sands to here and we don't touch that logo, then that other option is going to be better. So certain jobs can require or call for different methods of finishing. Anyway, that's enough theory craft from me. So we're going to gloss coat our nose, middle, tail, flip it over, gloss coat our nose and our tail, and then we'll leave this along with our yellow Flanagan with the fin box to cure overnight, and then we'll do our final sand and polish on both of them tomorrow. You guys should hopefully know what is going on now. So of course we're doing our gloss coat. We have 20 mils of resin, so that's going to mean how many drops of wax additive? 12, that's right, 6 drops for every 10 mils. And being a gloss coat, we really don't need much resin because we're putting on a really thin coat. Our only real goal here is just to fill up any 120 scratches we've put into the board. Maybe we've got some open air bubbles we're trying to fill, but in this case we don't. We're just giving ourselves a surface that we're going to easily be able to sand and polish. A nice, smooth, scratch-free surface. I'm using such a small amount of resin on this, such a thin coat, that I haven't even taped off the box because there's zero chance that resin is going to run into that box because there's just not enough resin going on to run. That's how little I'm putting on. We're just filling scratches. Our board is flipped and we're ready to gloss coat the deck side. There's a slight difference in the tail. You'll remember that when we first did the sanding coat, we put our tape kind of overhanging a little. But that's because we were going to do some hard sanding with 120. Of course, we're not going to do that after this coat. So our tape is just neatly to our hard edge because we're not going to be hard sanding away. So any overhanging resin, we won't be able to tackle with our 320. We're not planning on running our resin all the way to this tail pad, but it's worth knowing that poly resin can actually melt some of the foams that these tail pads are made out of. So this is just in case I accidentally nick the tail pad with my brush with resin on it. I just don't want to melt the customer's tail pad, you know. There's no different strategy here. You don't need a thick coat. Just need to get everything wet and filling those 120 scratches. Easy as that. That's it. Flanagan is gloss coated and Flanagan is gloss coated. So tomorrow we'll come back and we'll final sand and polish these two guys and they will be done and dusted. Right now I have a ton of epoxy boards we're going to fill, so I'm going to do them now, and we'll see you in the morning. Don't forget that during the release of all of these episodes, during this series, we're doing our first ever giveaway to celebrate 6,000 subscribers to the Small Kind Ding Repairs channel. We're essentially running a raffle, and the winner of the raffle will go home, or get sent, I guess, a bunch of cool shit from Shapers Collective, which is the showroom next door. The more people that enter this raffle, the bigger the prize at the end is going to be. And if enough people enter, maybe we can even split prizes across first and second, or first, second, third, something along those lines. Whether you're from outside of New Zealand or inside of New Zealand, if you're a member, a subscriber, or you just happen to have stumbled across this video, you're more than welcome to enter the raffle. There's a bunch of cool Kiwi products in Shapers Collective, and for a lot of you, it's probably going to be pretty hard to get your hands on outside of this raffle. So there's a golden opportunity here for you to get your hands on some pretty cool stuff. You'll find all the details for this competition in the pinned comment underneath this video, or any of the other episodes to this series. They'll all have that same pinned comment with all the instructions and the details you need on how to enter the raffle. Gentlemen, the time has come. Our resin coats are both cured on our two Flanagans, and so the time has come to final sand them and polish them. You can see how little of my 120 scratches remain. Remember, all of this has only been sanded with 120 so far, but we have filled all of those scratches with our resin, aside from these little bits around the edge. So what we're going to do is start by sanding our resin edge down with 240. This is going to, of course, take our resin edge down, but it's going to eradicate what's left of our 120 scratches. Once our resin edge has gone, then we'll switch to 320 on the machine, and we'll sand everything with 320, and then we can move on to our wet sanding, 400, 600, maybe 800, but probably not with this board. Same with our purple Flanagan. It's harder to see on the purple color, but you can see on the black there's about that much 120 scratches left. So we'll do our 240, sand the edge away, then we'll do everything else starting 320 and move up to wet sanding 400, 600, and unlikely 800 on this one as well. I'm also going to try and put a side-by-side comparison of this, our gloss coat, next to our sanding coat, and you'll see the difference. Whereas this is incredibly smooth, our sanding coat was lumpy and bumpy, and there was more to remove because, of course, we had our fresh lamination. The only lumps and bumps we have on this is our tape edge here, and it is quite small and easy to get rid of. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this beginner's guide to poly surfboard repairs. I hope you've all enjoyed. I hope you've all learned something, taken something away from this series or full-length video, whatever you've watched, whatever I happen to do with all this footage. There is one last thing I would like to touch on just before we finish. A pretty important thing that has been overlooked on this video, and that something is micro balloons. So you may have noticed that none of the repairs within this video actually used micro balloons, and they're not something I use often. I generally just use them to fill pinholes within expanding foam, and that's it. And none of our repairs in this video, in this basic guide, called for the use of filling pinholes with micro balloons. There is a question I get asked a lot about micro balloons, and when you're using it in poly resin, do you add wax additive to that micro balloon mix? And it's a good question. Generally the answer would be, it depends on how thick you plan on mixing it. So if you're after like a runny white paste and you're filling something like that, then yes, I would add wax additive to those micro balloons. It is going to cure sticky, not as sticky as just pure laminating resin, but it's still going to be difficult to sand. The more micro balloons you add to your mix and the thicker that mix becomes, the less you're going to need wax additive in there. It will eventually get to a point where it's so thick that that sticky residue from the poly resin just can't rise to the surface. The safest answer for this question though is just add your wax additive at the same rate you would add it to normal sanding resin. So for every 10 mils of resin, you're going to add 6 drops of wax additive. This is going to be done before we add the micro balloons. So let's say we're going to mix up 30 mils of resin. So I'm going to fill my cup with 30 mils and I'm going to add my 18 drops of wax additive. So that's 6 drops for every 10 mils worth of resin. I'm then going to add my catalyst first, and I'm going to mix that for 25 to 30 seconds thereabouts. If we're doing a really thick mix, adding catalyst last can be a problem because the thickness of the mix can actually stop that catalyst reaching all of the resin, and you'll end up with uncured bits of micro balloon mix and cured bits of micro balloon mix. So I'm always adding my wax additive and catalyst to the resin before the micro balloons. And then micro balloons like these ones here, we can just add as we want. So it's a little bit like making pancakes. If you want it thick, or if you want thick pancakes, you add more flour, and if you don't want it as thick, you want a runnier pancake batter, then you add less flour, and this is no different. There's really no such thing as too much of this stuff. I mean, there is, but it'll just turn into powder. It'll be impossible to use, so you'll find that line pretty easily. Now, I only use 2 types of micro balloon mixers here at Small Kind Ding Repairs. On the left here, or your right, we have the 404. It's a high density filler, so it actually has an adhesive quality to it. It's really good for putting boards back together, fixing big D-lam type of stuff, that sort of thing. It is quite heavy, this stuff. It's a horrible grey colour, but having that adhesive quality is really good. And then on your left here, we have the West Systems 409. This is the one I use the most. These are the microspheres. So each little ball of powder is a hollow balloon or a micro balloon. It's very lightweight. It's a very bright white when mixed with poly or epoxy. Both of these can be used with epoxy or poly. So this is generally what I'll use for filling pinholes or indiscrepancies in foams, resin, that type of stuff. But very important to remember that we're not filling large open cavities like broken out fin boxes with purely resin and micro balloons. We will always replace foam and then just finely tune that replaced foam with these products. That about covers micro balloon usage. So I think that's basically all of the basics of poly covered. This video has been an epic undertaking for me, a lot of footage. It has taken me a long time to edit, so I hope it's worth it in the long run. As always, if you have any comments or any questions at all, leave them down below and I'll get back to you for sure. Yeah, and I guess eventually we'll do a similar video to this, but we'll touch base on the basics of epoxy resin. resin, which hopefully will be a slightly shorter series because a lot of it's going to be similar when it comes to telling if your board is poly or epoxy, what we're working with, that kind of stuff. As always, guys, really appreciate you watching. Thank you to the new subscribers who have joined us. Thank you to the old subscribers for sticking around. And of course, thank you to all of the channel members. You guys are legends. Always great talking to you. Always great keeping up with your projects. And we will see all of you in the next one, whatever that may be. Hope you all, guys, have a good one. Choo-hoo! Are you a person who owns a surfboard and has damaged that surfboard and are looking for ways to fix your surfboard without just going the Uncle Tony method and filling it full of some gnarly product like car bog or resin and micro balloons? Maybe you're one of the many people who have messaged me over the years with photos of your damaged surfboard asking, hey, how do I go about fixing this in the proper manner? Maybe you've already started fixing your surfboard, but you're not quite sure what to do next. You're stuck at a particular stage. Well, do I have something that may interest you? The fact that you're here watching this video tells me that you're someone who is a surfer and does want some help in fixing your own surfboard. And I've always been here to help you guys, and that's what this channel is all about. Allow me then to introduce you guys to a product that I've created to help you along that journey and make it a little bit easier. Small Kind Ding Repairs has a new clothing line. So this, of course, is a hoodie. We all know what a hoodie looks like, but this hoodie is a little bit different. On the back of this hoodie is basically my autobiography, but it is essentially a checklist of how to fix a poly surfboard. All of these stages are going to be covered and featured in this series that you're watching right now. From prep to fill to skim to sand to paint to laminate to resin to sand to resin to wet sand and finally to polish. Now, you could simply buy this hoodie and pin it to the wall of your shed or whatever space it is you're repairing boards in and keep this as your own little personal checklist. Or of course, you could wear it while you're repairing your surfboard, and at each stage, you could just take the hoodie off and read the back of it and you know exactly where you're up to in your repair process. Oh man, what am I gonna do with this thing? I know. Being a surfer though, maybe it's too warm for a hoodie where you're at, so that's why we also have t-shirts with the same checklist on the back. Or maybe you're the type of person who likes ultra light surfboards so that you can do incredible aerial maneuvers in the water. And if you're that person, then for you, we have here the epoxy repair checklist. This one's a little bit longer, but essentially we sand, we fill, we sand, we skim, we sand, we laminate, we sand, we resin, we wet sand, we paint, we wet sand, and we polish. But Uncle Small Kind Dings, I love doing incredible aerial maneuvers in the water, but I also live in a cold area. I've got your back, mate, because here we have the hoodie version of the epoxy repair checklist. We got every base covered. Whether you live somewhere warm and you require a t-shirt, or you live somewhere cold and you require a hoodie, Small Kind Dings has all of the options you require for your local climate and whatever type of repairs it is that you're trying to do. Between this YouTube channel and these hoodies and shirts, you now have no excuses at all to be fixing your dings like an Uncle Tony. So if this series or any one of my videos in the past has been helpful for you and you'd like to support the channel and also let the world know that you're not just another Uncle Tony filling surfboards with car bog, you'll find these shirts and hoodies by going to the description of this video and following the link to the Small Kind Ding Repairs shop. Not only will you find these fine garments in that shop, but you'll also find a catalogue of other things that you most certainly need. So after you've watched this episode, feel free to go to the shop, have a peruse, and spend your money.